the big issue for Sark last season, and you can even take it back to 2021 if you want to, but I know people don't want to do it. That's very painful. Let's just take it back to 2022. The big issue was what? One-score games, right? Couldn't win the one-score games and couldn't close out games in the fourth quarter, and then the second half adjustments we talked about, right? Winning the chess match within the game with opposing coordinators, with opposing coaches. And there was a emphasis on that in the offseason by Sark. He even talked about they're going to play more guys, so they're fresh in the fourth quarter. He threw multiple solutions at the problem. And I always say, what I say about coaches? They're problem solvers. Just solve the problem. And sometimes you don't know how to solve the problem. You just got to throw a lot of different solutions at it till you figure out exactly what the best remedy may be. And Sark did that. Second half issues and their inability to close in the fourth quarter, played more guys, so he said be fresher, even though a lot of folks said, oh man, that's actually hurting Texas because they're exposed and they can be exploited with, rotating these guys, not always having their frontline guys in there. Sark didn't care. He remained steadfast. We're going to be a better team in the fourth quarter, in the second half, if we have fresher bodies in the fourth quarter, in the second half. He also talked about how he changed up his practices to make sure that they were more intense toward the end of practice so that they can focus on the fourth quarter and closing out games. We know it was a point of emphasis with him just talking to the team because guys like JT Sanders brought up that he, in the offseason, that he knew, we know that the narrative about Texas that we can't close. We know. And we're going to rectify that. And what happened in this season, right? Even though I know that there were some games where they performed in clutch time, but didn't necessarily close out the opponents the way they wanted to. But you saw this team become a fourth quarter team. You saw this team become a clutch team that made clutch plays in critical moments.
In all phases too, Ron.
Yes. So, and I'll give the players credit. Of course, players made plays in critical moments, but you got to give Sark some credit because Sark emphasized it.
Yep.
Like Sark evolved the blueprint. He figured out like these are our issues. Let's address what our issues are. And I give him a ton of credit for that growth as a play caller and as a head coach. I've documented how we've seen him figure out his antidote and remedy to the high three down defense. We talked about that in the last Behind the Burn Orange Curtain, and we may do it again. But even this season, the big issue for them this season has been red zone offense. And I don't know if they figured out red zone offense. I don't know because
they did Saturday.
We don't have a large enough sample size. We do not have a large enough sample size, right? Pretty much they've been bad at red zone offense all year long. Doesn't matter even if they have a great offensive performance or a bad one. If their opposing defense is a good red zone defense or bad red zone defense, it doesn't matter. Texas has been bad there. One of the worst. I'm talking about 120 something in the country in touchdown percentage in the red zone. But they were 5-5 in that game versus Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game. And that, to me, if I'm a Longhorn fan, brings me a lot of hope because we've talked about it several times. One of the big issues holding back this Texas squad has been their inability to score in the red zone. You can make the argument they're the number one team, the best team in the country potentially, if they could actually score at a reasonable rate. I'm not saying they have to be the best red zone.
They'll be 115th in the country.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they'd beat Oklahoma, and so they wouldn't have a loss. So they would be number one.
They would be number one
if they were better in the red zone at that moment. They would have won that game.
Yeah, 5-5 in the red zone, and I think in the red zone he actually changed up his philosophy. I'd be interested to see what Sark has to say about it when the media talks to him again. I think he went players, not plays, in the red zone this time. I think he's thinking about getting the ball to players. First of all, it's a Devondre Sweat thing. Right? But the AD,
awesome.
Yeah, AD Mitchell is your best red zone target. They start out when they get the first time they get in the red zone. Let's go to AD. Let's get it. AD's our guy. They go to AD there. The Jaden Blue swing pass that they end up scoring on. I think that was specific. That looked like that was game plan specific and matchup specific to me.
Get his speed to the edge.
Exactly, right. Talk about those linebackers chasing. Remember you talked about that?
Yep.
Linebackers chasing, trying to work through traffic. That seemed to me to be specific. So I think in the red zone he was thinking players, not plays in the red zone, and maybe that helped him. You still got to have the really nice plays and dial them up, but it seems like he was looking specifically for certain players in the red zone on plays, and it helped him out. Either way, if Texas is going to be, that efficient in the red zone like we saw versus Oklahoma State, you may be talking about a Texas team that can pull off, the big win over Washington and win the national title, just because we haven't seen this team, that version of the Texas offense, we have not seen all season. They've not been that good in the red zone all year.
Just flip it around. Like if Oklahoma State was going to be in that game, they needed to force some field goals in that spot and give themselves a chance. And that's how Oklahoma hung around, and other teams have hung around with Texas by forcing field goals. Heck, Tech forced 5 Texas field goals.
That was the key.
When you put 7 on the board and it's just like landing huge blows in a boxing match. These aren't like gut punches that take their toll. These are,
haymakers
to the jaw.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma State was just staggered. It was over. And that's how dangerous the team can be. But to your point about the entire year, it's well said because Sark has told us. We know they spent a lot of the offseason focusing on Alabama, be ready for that game because they knew how pivotal it was. And Sark, by the way, says we're not backing off playing tough teams in the non-conference, by the way.
Good for him.
We're going to play Michigan. We're going to play Ohio State.
We ain't scared.
We think it's good for us.
Don't be scared.
And
scared, go to church.
So, and he also said all summer, we worked on fourth quarter.
He kept talking about it.
And so you show up, you beat Alabama, you're great in the fourth quarter, but clearly during the year you had to get back to working on being fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. Like almost you took your eye off of that ball. Okay, wait a second. We're great in the fourth quarter now, but we're not as good for, we take lulls here. We got to fix that. And the last couple of weeks, and certainly even, I think if you go Iowa State, Tech in this game, their best full 4 quarters of football.
Agreed.
Of the season, which should be scary for Washington and Georgia and Michigan,
yeah,
because now Texas has a month to get healthier. And I would also say during that stretch where they were frustrating as a team for the fans, but finding ways to win, they were banged up. They had a hurt quarterback, they had a hurt center, they had a hurt tight end. They were banged up.
They lost their center in the Oklahoma game.
Yeah, they were not as, but every team deals with injuries. I'm not saying that's the excuse, but the fact that they survived that, didn't take a loss, found a way to beat K-State with a backup quarterback, didn't take that second big L, and to get healthy. Remember right before the Iowa State game, it was TCU. Where Sark said we had everybody practicing for the first time. It was wonderful.
I almost jinxed him.
And then Jonathan Brooks got hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
But, and then they were able to show that they're deep enough to weather a big injury to your best running back. Every team is looking at it right now that has made it into this tournament feeling pretty good. Washington feels great.
They're getting healthier.
They've
had their wide receivers actually have been off and on. They haven't had their full complement of wide receivers all season, guys.
What a hell of a game that's going to be.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Because as you said, Texas's secondary is probably their most vulnerable spot. They're not going to run against Texas. We know that.
Well, they did last year.
Well, they did.
Last year they had for 150 yards on Texas.
Yeah, I was at that game. That was a lame Texas performance. It was.
They post Bijan and Rojo.
Those guys didn't feel like they were playing with that level of intensity.
Quinn played pretty well that game, though.
Quinn did. That was exciting.
That was actually one of Quinn's better games.
He was rusty a little early, and then the second half he was outstanding.
And that's the thing about Kalen DeBoer that's interesting though, because like Sark, he's grown, right? We know Sark was pass happy. Another thing that Sark fixed last year that we all. This is in the Oklahoma State game last year. The frivolous deep shots, right? Where he's chasing the deep ball constantly. He's like, Sark, you haven't seen it, right? Every now and then they'll take a shot, but it's a more judicious, calculated shot. It's not just frivolous shots on first down, just throwing it downfield. That's how Gundy beat him.
Yeah.
Last year. Gundy beat him last year because he kept suckering Sark into taking that deep shot, and Sark could not resist. He's like, I need that deep ball, baby. I'm looking for that deep ball. But this year, he's cut. Actually, early in the season, he was taking those deep shots. But as the season goes on, I think he's understood that it's hurt them more than it's helped them, and he's actually accepted that that's not necessarily a strength of our offense. It's not a strength of Quinn's. But there are other strengths that we can emphasize, that we can highlight, that we can weaponize within this offense. So all the different ways that Sark has grown have to be documented because the team has gotten better, but it's also because he has gotten better. That's why he's in this group of coaches now. If he didn't evolve as a coach, he would not be here with Kalen DeBoer and with the GOAT Nick Saban with the ball coach Harbaugh.
Well, that's what we said last year when they were 8-5. It's like, look, if you want to, Sonny Dykes was a toast of the town and was considered. You know what? You got to prove it. You said when the season began, Sark will either, everybody that supports Sark is going to have their argument. Everyone who thinks that there are doubts are going to obviously have theirs, and Sark has dispelled all because I think this team has gotten better as the year's gone on. They've fixed problems as they've cropped up, and here they are playing for a championship. And you're right with DeBoer. I was thinking about you watching that game Friday night. Tendency breakers, right? Washington came into that game heavy pass, like they're 75% pass to 25% run.
Yep. Biggest
game of the year. They ran it like crazy. They had a running back with 28 carries.
Yep. They did it twice this year, right? Because USC, they did the same thing as USC.
They did.
So he will, if you come back, if Texas wants to drop 8 against him and just play 3 down, okay, he will run it now.
Yeah, this is a high-level coaching matchup, and you just said it. Thinking Harbaugh Saban. I know we'll have the FSU argument, but man, that is a much more exciting conversation to.
Are we gonna break ratings for this college football playoff?
Possible.
Because thinking
Possible.
about the brands and the coaches and the stars and the offenses, you know what I mean? Are we going?
The Michigan controversy,
Yeah.
because that'll be discussed.
I think you
and
might.
We might. Texas is a huge brand. Washington is kind of the outlier, but they're
Seattle's
a really good
a big
team.
market though.
And they've been on. They've been on the center stage a couple times this year with that Pac-12, blow up, beating Oregon
true.
twice. Had College Game Day in Seattle once this year. We'll come back. We'll pick it up. There's Rod's rant. We'll hear from Sark. He joined the college football playoff crew yesterday on ESPN after the Longhorns were announced as the 3 seed. They will play Washington at the Sugar Bowl. Get your tickets now. I saw where tickets in the upper deck, Rod, going for $1,300 to $1,500.
Say
each.
what? Excuse me?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yo.
Dang it.
Get your tickets now.
I guess I won't be. I guess I need a friend.
On the secondary markets.
I'm gonna need a friend. You know what? I know Ty knows a guy. Ty know a lot of people.
Ty's already got a ticket.
I gotta hook up.
See, I knew Ty would have to hook up. Come
How
on,
does
Ty.
Rod B not have a hookup and you have a hookup?
I
You
probably
can get a
do,
hookup if you want
man.
one.
I don't know if I want to get my.
Well,
I
we'll
save my
start-
hookup for Houston,
Well,
for H-Town.
That's right. That's right. Well,
Saving my hookup for H-Town,
if you're
baby.
going to spend $1,500 to $3,000 on 2 tickets to go to that game, then you got to pony up the next week if they win.
Exactly.
For the game with
I'm gonna
Alabama or
save up for H-Town for me because at least I don't have to worry about room and board out there.
Well, and for
My
folks who are
parents
just coming
live
to
out
this,
there.
if Texas does win, and we talked about this last week, if the Texas can get into that Sugar Bowl, their next trip, if they could win it, would be to Houston.
Yes,
So
sir.
2 short road trips as far as the crow flies for the Longhorns.
Imagine a national title game for Texas in H-Town.
Ooh, boy.
How much burnt orange is gonna show up out there?